Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
If you are a man and interested in learning this work, we are offering a free men's experience this Sunday, September 17th. We are holding it at 9 a.m. PST, so that'll be 12 p.m. Eastern. We're holding a Zoom call for all the men that want to get a taste and want to take part in this amazing work that we offer at MSU. So if you are interested, there is a link in the description. Please click it, sign up, and join us on Sunday, September 17th. I will see you then.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Danny Morley. And today I wanted to really go into one of the wounds I've been unpacking recently, which is not feeling like a man and understanding what is masculinity. Where has this patriarchal society brainwashed us into thinking certain things about men and women? And yeah, what wounds and programs are under there, and where am I now?
Yeah. I mean, this episode's really going to be focused on you because I am not a man. But I do live in a toxic patriarchy world.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning of what your experience has been like being a man in this world.
Before we get there, I want to start with what was the impetus for this? What brought this out? And it was going to see Barbie. It was when we went to go see Barbie, a film that's out in the movies right now. When I first watched the trailer, I was like, oh, this is a stupid movie. And there was a lot of stupid parts in it. This isn't like a everyone go watch Barbie kind of moment. But there was a really beautiful, deep message behind that. And it really showed me how much we live in a very toxic masculine world. And the basic premise of the film is that in Barbie land, they live in a matriarchy, and it's run more by women, and they have to go into the real world, which is run by men. And in this world, men dominate everything. And I was seeing the way Ryan Gosling was, all his worth came from his looks. And this is something that I've been working through many layers of and still healing. And it started out from childhood. So when I was a young kid in elementary school, primary school, I was the fastest kid in the school. I was really good at sports. I was intelligent. And everyone used to say, oh, what, you're so cute. A good handsome boy, little handsome boy, right? Which I look back now, I was like, oh, I was a little cute, handsome boy. But in my head, it built around all of my worth around the fact that I was handsome, I was good at sports, and I had good intellect. So those three things were kind of like this core belief of what it is that made me worthy as a boy at school. Especially, it was like a really prestigious award called Sportsman of the Year, which I won in my last year of school. And I was like so excited, and they chose a boy and a girl, and it was like that was the moment that I was like, this is it. I'm like the top boy. And then I went to high school with like 1,000 kids, going from a school of like 40 in rural England. And the cutest girl in school that I really had a crush on made fun of my big nose. I wasn't the fastest kid anymore, and I wasn't the smartest anymore. And I had to start like reassessing where I kind of fit in. And this model of that I'd built up in my head kind of from the world as well and school of what it means to be like the top man or the boy or like what that is. It was all based around like all this physicality and then like intellect. And so that caused a lot of like fractures in, I think, my psyche, plus the like emotional and mental traumas of what happened while I was in school. So I'll just start there.
And then not to mention the fact that you're a HSP, a highly sensitive person, and you're very sensitive.
Right. Well, I've not gone there yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that was the big wound just this morning that I got into was, I mean, I'll start off with that then a little bit of, then there's the whole part of being sensitive, being a boy who had a lot of feelings, didn't exactly know what to do with them all, and wasn't exactly being guided by peers or family because no one really knew back then. And it was really challenging, and I would feel things so deeply. And I was also very physically sensitive. So very sensitive in all manners, like in every way, I feel very sensitive, which doing the work that I do now, it's a huge gift because it allows me to tap more deeply into the energies and understand things on a deeper level, helps me to empathize, to psychically tap into what's going on in my coaching sessions. However, when you're a kid and your worth is around being a man and being strong, men are strong and tough. And I'm in high school watching all these kids get ragged around in the rugby field. I didn't want any part of it because I knew how painful it was every time that I got tackled, or I just didn't want to put myself through that. And then all of a sudden this belief gets created, like you're not like them because you're more sensitive, and therefore like men are strong and men are superior because this is the world we live in. And because I didn't feel like that, I therefore felt inferior. And the fact that I felt weak because I had a lot of sensitivities, and I didn't want to go like roll around and get tackled aggressively again and again and again on a rugby pitch. It meant that I had this idea in myself that I'm not manly, I'm not strong enough to be a man, I'm weak, and I'm inferior. And there was so much shame tied into that.
Yeah, I was going to go into the emotional programs that were birthed during that time. So you talk about shame, you talk about inferiority, you talk about weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are some of the other ones?
Inadequacy. I'm just not enough, constantly not enough. And that was something, the inadequacy and the unworthiness. Obviously, that unworthiness ties a lot into like the physicality of like, what I was led to believe and what I grew up believing as my worth was in my physical appearance of how muscular I was, how strong I was, like physically, and how athletic I could be, and then how intelligent I was. So that was, and then also like the good looks that come in there as well. Like that was where my worth was. And therefore, if I'm not that, I'm unworthy. And that's really difficult because like I spent my teens and my 20s building a physique that I felt worthy of. And then when you get injured and you can't maintain that physique, all of a sudden you're now dealing with feeling all of this unworthiness, all of this shame for not being worthy, for not being strong, because I would just lose weight so quickly. Like as soon as I stopped lifting weights, my muscles would shrink, I would get real small. And that's the big one. One of my big wounds is feeling small. What happened today, I was getting outside the car as we were going to the gym, and I banged my elbow right on like a nerve ending, and it shot this huge pain throughout my arm. And it triggered me because in that moment, it brought me back to all these moments that I just feel so weak and I feel so small, and I'm so powerless in that because I can't change it. I can't change how sensitive I am. The only thing I've learned, obviously, is to embrace those sensitivities and find my power in it. But up until really today, there was still a lot of weakness that was in there. And then when I would feel that, I would shame myself for being weak. So it's just a lot of like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of being a man. I'm not strong. Therefore, I'm weak and I'm inferior. And just a lot of shame and judgment on myself.
Yeah, and it's so sad because in reality, none of those things have anything to do with your worth. But like, think about how many men out there, you know, as you were talking, I was just thinking about like, man, like my brother was super emotional and he was so demonized for that. And like, even like the kids, the guys like in school who were smart, if they weren't athletic, they weren't man enough, you know, but like the ones that were athletic were so manly. And in reality, they were like the worst people ever. And yeah, it's just so sad what patriarchy has done to so many men out there, and who can't even speak about it, because speaking about what they feel and their sensitivities and their emotions about not being what the standard man is causes even more shame. So
Yes.
men just like push it down, shove it down, hide it. And it's important for men like you to be talking about this, because there is nobody really talking about this.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've really struggled with is not seeing any men out there talking about the objectification of women and the programs of objectification and lust. And these are two programs that I'm really working on healing, but it's hard for me because I'm not seeing men on podcasts. I'm just not really seeing it. People talking about how deep the objectification and lust programs run. And that's because everyone, including women, this doesn't fall into men. Everyone is brainwashed in this patriarchy where we think it's normal for the man to be superior. There's a book I have on my, sorry, pointing over your face.
Okay.
There's a book I have on my bookshelf over there, and it's known as one of the standards for men's work. And it's called The Way of the Superior Man. Right? I've never read it. I haven't read it yet. I don't think I ever will, because this is where we have been. It's been in this society where men are thinking that they're superior. And the book that I read, Mason's Way, Rachel's work, is about the way of equality. Men and women being equal. It's not about becoming a superior man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's been really challenging for me, because I'm looking out in the world, and a lot of the leaders that I'm seeing as men in the men's work are still talking about controlling women, owning women. I was watching a video the other day by somebody that's really highly regarded in men's work and seen as a leader into like men and love. And he was literally talking about feel what it feels like to own your woman.
Oh my God.
And that on a spectrum, on a sexual spectrum, you've got like the owning on one end, and you've got the light on the, you've got like the light and the dark, and you want a like bass and treble, and you want all tones in your sexual expression.
Ugh.
And for me, I don't want that. I want the enlightened connection through sexual experiences. And this is difficult because there isn't men talking about this. And this is why I wanted to jump on today and start to talk and share about what I'm moving through, what it's like to try and become these 20 ways of oneness, and how that doesn't fall into the patriarchal society that we've been brought up in. It doesn't fall into becoming the way of the superior man. I challenge everyone out there who's maybe read that book to maybe really think about, why do I need to be superior to any other man or any woman? What program am I running there? If I need to be the superior man, what program am I running? And on the other end, you know, am I running a program of inferiority? This is what I did. I would look up to other men who were more physically built and look at them like they're superior. They're better than me because they've got a bigger chest and they've got more muscles. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. It's all brainwashing that we've been led to believe. And this idea that a man can't be in touch with his emotions or sensitive in any way, and if he is, he's weak, that's absolutely absurd. But it's hard to get there when we still run programs inside of us that say, well, that's true.
Yeah.
And so it's only from like healing these over the last month and really going in and doing some work around it and seeing, man, I really like today. What came up is I really hate how much I'm sensitive. And that's not accepting or loving who I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's shaming and separating from the truth of me. And the more I can bring that together and say, no, I know it's frustrating. I know that you may hate it like my inner child. That's okay. I'm here to love you either way.
Yeah.
And through that, that's when we can start to actually mature into the man we're supposed to be.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's really difficult for me to watch movies and TV shows, because there's so much toxic patriarchy and like men ruling women and lust and objectification. And I really think the reason why that there's not a lot of men speaking about those programs is because we're so brainwashed to believe like that's okay to do and that's okay to run. And so, like, even when I see men in the quote unquote spiritual world and talking about how, like, we should appreciate physical beauty in a woman, and, like, if we should give attention to them because, like, they are beautiful and all these things. And it's like, whoa, there's a fine line there. Okay. It's okay to, of course, like, appreciate somebody's beauty. And then it's another thing to lust after them, to sexualize them, to objectify them. Like, no, that when you feel a frequency of that, that feels icky, that feels low. Right. And so I think, like, for you, I always tell you, like, you were never meant to have men to show you the way because you're here to pave that way, which is not an easy journey, especially on a topic that men don't want to face, because they do want to objectify and lust after women. And then not only our culture says like, that's okay to do that. And then women are like, fall into all that stuff. Like me too. Like I run programs of lust when it comes to like Ryan Gosling and things like that. Like he's so hot and blah, blah, blah. And like in the past year, every time, like if there's an attractive man or whatever, and I feel the program running, I'll feel how icky it is. And I'll have to drop in and like alchemize it, because they're like, what you look like has nothing to do with anything, And yet we think like that's what, and like even the idea of like, oh, I want a manly man and all the, like, what does that even mean? None of it actually means anything. It's just all brainwashing.
Yeah. I have a feeling the concept of a manly man will fall away. Yeah. I don't think it will remain. That for what I think and feel what a manly man is, I'm thinking of somebody who is very disconnected, physically big, maybe disconnected from their emotions and not very sensitive. Who knows? Maybe the term will evolve into what divine masculine actually is, which is what the path that I'm on is trying to find, is safety, security, stability. These are all characteristics of the divine masculine energy. It's here to bring that safety, but that doesn't mean that men are only divine masculine and women are only divine feminine. This is something that's like a complete wrong teaching. We all have a mix of these energies and we work together in harmony. I have a lot of divine feminine energy in me. I also have a lot of divine masculine energy in me, and where that balance, that mix is going to be different for everyone.
Yeah. Danny and I are watching a show right now called The Wheel of Time. And if you guys if you have Amazon Prime, you should watch it. But the whole show is basically what divine masculine and feminine and what the world should look like, which is women are the leaders. And Rachel has this beautiful quote where women are the leaders and men are meant to follow from the front. And that's what this whole show is about. And it's like every man in this show, I don't see it as like, oh my God, that's like, they're a man because they're big and strong. No, they're beautiful men because they're here to do what they're here to do, which is to create safety and security as the woman is in all of her power, as she's the one that leads, as she's the one that points and goes, okay, that needs to be done, and they go do it. And it's such a beautiful representation of what our world will become, and how we live in the upside down world now.
Yeah, minus maybe the all the scary warlocks that are in there, or whatever you want to call them. Minus that, we absolutely love that show. And hey, Barbie wasn't a shout out for Barbie, but this is a shout out for Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
If you want a good bit of enjoyment about seeing all
divine,
that,
feminine, masculine, like truly what
it's in there.
Yeah, how we're supposed to run and what our world is supposed to look like. It's really incredible show.
Yeah, and you also bring up another point of masculine strength. So it's something that Rachel's always talked about to us, about masculine strength and feminine power, right? But what happens in my mind is I hear that and I don't feel strong. So because I don't feel strong, therefore I'm not masculine. So there's this, because duality still lives within me, this idea of, well, if it's not this, it's that. If it's not black, it's white. If it's not up, it's down. Because that third dimensional construct is still in me, whenever I hear, well, masculine strength, I'm like, well, I'm not strong, therefore I'm not masculine. And that's just being perceived through the level of consciousness that I'm at. So if that's what you're hearing, understand that that is the level of consciousness that your programs are operating at, in which you're viewing and interpreting the world. So when we can elevate beyond that, beyond the duality, and the way that you do that is through this work that we offer at MSU. And I'll go into real briefly what that means, is that when we are in duality, it's either we're experiencing strength or weakness. It's one or the other. I'm either in fear or I'm in peace. Through this work, we teach you to drop into your heart, open it, and this is a process, it takes time, and feel your pain from your heart center. And what happens is you build up enough divine power to still be eventually at peace and in love whilst feeling the fear, the pain. And when that happens, the pain entrains to the high vibration of love and peace, and alchemy happens. And that actually collapses that duality, because now we're in oneness. We're entering the fifth dimension, which is what Rachel always talks about the ways of oneness. When we're in oneness with our pain, it has no choice but to entrain to the higher vibration. So this is how we enter that fifth dimension. It's not out there. If you've listened to anything about the fifth dimension, it's not outside, it's inside. We have to find this within us. It's not coming. It's we have to become it. We have to become this ascension. So when we're able to go in and love our pain, we're moving, we're transcending that duality. We're getting into oneness. And when we're in between, we're in what's known as like the fourth dimension. We're like kind of not really in the third anymore, but we're not really in the fifth. And we're kind of like figuring it out. And that's how we can work through things like, oh, masculine strength. Okay, well, I might not feel strong right now, but is that the truth? Maybe, maybe not. When I drop in and I heal the wound that's making me feel weak, am I actually stronger than a woman? Yeah, I probably am. I am a man. Men are built biologically stronger.
Yeah.
But then if you carry any wounding that says, well, I'm weak, I'm too sensitive, I'm not good enough, I'm whatever it might be, then we fall into, well, then I might not be what a man is. I might not be strong.
Yeah. Beautiful, powerful. And, just my own personal experience of, before you, I remember when I was like in high school and college, and like there was this one guy and that, I had interest in, and this girl was like, he cries a lot. And we were all like, ew, like that's such a turn off, and like thinking that like that's something that's like not attractive and all these things. And dating you, as sensitive and as emotional as you are, it's completely, let that old paradigm and that old thought of that conditioning of men shouldn't cry, men shouldn't be emotional, men shouldn't be all of these things, like on TikTok, like the hottest men on TikTok are the ones that are chopping wood and are like huge, right? And it's like when I feel into them, it's like there's nothing there, right? Inside, just outside your fist doesn't mean shit if inside you're not building within. And so for me, you've really changed that whole perspective of me, and like even the way that you show up when I'm crumbling, the way that you can like be that stability and that security as I'm falling apart has really shown me like, oh, this is what a man is. And like, and then being able to hold you when you're crying and not judging you for that or thinking, oh, he's weak because of that. It's like, no, this man just allows himself to feel so deeply. And that's strength. That's power.
Yeah. And there's a certain level of like inner strength. This is something I was sitting with last night, contemplating on, of like, I'm this morning actually, like, am I strong? And where is that strength? And I know to the core of my being, there's so much strength there. And it might not be necessarily reflected in my physical body. What happened was a couple of years ago, while I started this work, I got injured in several places. And this is something I've spoken about before on the podcast. And I know that it's related to the fact that there's parts of me that still feel weak. A lot of things going on in my right shoulder. And those injuries are, the way that I understand them, is like the manifestations of the energy that's inside. So when I've spent all of my life chasing physical strength to look a certain way, to have a certain value and worth in life, eventually, if I've got an energy of weakness in there, it's going to show up in my body somewhere. And that's what happened. Yeah. And real strength, you know, a lot of men are emotionally fragile. We're not taught to feel emotion. We're taught boys don't cry, toughen up, like don't cry about it. This is everything that we're taught as kids. And that means that when emotional things happen to us, we don't know how to process it. Now, I was very lucky as a child because my father didn't demonize. He didn't shame me for having emotions. And I believe that's why I'm more open emotionally. But there still wasn't the place of like, let's sit down and talk about our feelings. It wasn't exactly that.
Yeah.
And this is where we get into like, where like this whole idea that feelings and emotions are a woman's thing. That's like so absurd. Like
and it's completely ruined men.
Yeah, because men think, oh, I just got to suppress everything.
Yeah.
And the big emotion that I wasn't allowed to feel as a child, that was truly repressed, and it's only been coming out now for the last year, is anger. And I'm finally building a relationship with this anger and being like allowing myself to feel it in its totality. And it's allowing me to heal and like in much deeper, because I'm allowing all of the spectrum of emotions to like be felt in my body. But I can only imagine how difficult that is for men who repress all the other emotions and they're only allowed to feel anger, because that's the narrative, is like men are allowed to be angry, but they're not allowed to feel anything else. Women are allowed to feel everything else, but they're not allowed to be angry.
Yeah.
And so all that suppressed anger in women, or repressed anger normally, it wreaks havoc on the immune system and whatever on the physical body.
And what's it been like to access that anger?
Really, 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 really difficult at first, like accessing repressed emotions, so that we got suppressed, which is when you're consciously doing it, and repressed where you're unconsciously, you don't realize that it's happening. For me, I've not got down to the exact moment that these programs of repression started, but from what I felt, it was like my parents couldn't handle me when I was angry. So I had to I had to learn to not be angry, or I wouldn't get love, or I wouldn't get whatever it was, which is very normal in society. So I learned to squash all the anger down, and it's been a challenge just allowing myself to fully feel it. And it resulted, my dog has this amazing way of bringing it out of me. This 80-pound, just jacked pit bull that just is so powerful, makes me feel so weak, so small. And it brings out all of this anger. And it's this beautiful soul relationship that we have, I can tell. And we were traveling at the weekend, and I had to go off into the forest and just scream and just get it out and allow myself to fully feel that anger. And it's been so challenging, because every time it comes up, it's like I don't want to feel it, and it just goes back down. I don't know how to have that vibration in my body. It's like I don't know how to hold it. And there's definitely a fear there of, if I do allow this in, because it's so powerful, because it feels more powerful than all the other, we'll call them negative or unwanted emotions, undesirable emotions. It's so powerful that it can make you feel like you're losing control. And for me, I never want to harm another being. I never want to harm anyone intentionally or unintentionally. And so when that anger comes in, there's definitely a part of me that's like, I'm worried about doing something harmful to another being if I allow this in, because it's so powerful and I don't know what I'm going to do. And the way this would manifest in the past was when I would get blacked out drunk in my late teens and early 20s. It would come out and I would project all onto my partner. Now, luckily, I'm doing this work, so that doesn't happen anymore. And I don't drink till I get blackout drunk. But for a while, that was a problem. And I was projecting a lot of harm to past partners. And just that vibration was just coming out of me when I would get super drunk. And that's when, the demons are coming out, when you see that kind of behavior, when someone is got some deep, dark, repressed pain.
Yeah. And, Rachel always talks about how, look at who the mass shooters and the serial rapists and all of these things are in the world. They're men, because there's so much repressed and suppressed emotion in there, and they got to let it out somehow, and they project it out, and it's a lot of darkness and a lot of horrific things. And, I just want to also talk about you screaming in the forest, right? That anger had to express itself. It came out in that way, but there's a fine line between that and then doing that constantly and not alchemizing it. So Why don't you go into a little bit about that?
Yeah, with anger, for most people, I'll start with this. For most men who know how to feel anger, the way to move through anger is to actually not fully constantly express it all the time, to actually drop in and alchemize it, to feel the anger in the body, but to drop into your heart at the same time. For me, because I carried the repressed anger, and this is why nothing's ever black and white on your healing journey. And this is why we always recommend to give the expert guidance of someone like a mystical life coach or any other coach or therapist that you deem fit. But because there's no cookie cutter answer. But for someone like me who did have repressed anger, it was important that I just allowed myself to feel the anger fully. Once we allow ourselves to fully feel the emotion, we're not resisting anything. When we're not resisting, we're entering surrender. And that's when we can actually start to fully connect. And if you're reading the ways of oneness and following them, yes, the way of surrender, way of oneness, number 3, then the way of connection, I believe it's 5 or 6. And we can start to actually connect to our pain. And then that allows for the alchemy to start to happen. Yeah. So if we're holding it back without ever allowing ourselves to fully feel it, then we need to actually feel what it feels like to let that power out, to feel it. But and this is something that you'll have to, if you're listening to this and you're working through anger, you'll have to either get guidance for or figure out on your own that you don't, if you're feeling angry and you're constantly just going to like chop wood or scream in a forest, like that's not healing anything. Then you're just constantly expressing, and you're not addressing the root. And we always, like for me, after I'd moved through this big primal scream, now I can feel the anger comes online and I just drop in. I feel the anger in my body because I've allowed that emotion in. And now I can actually start to heal and transform at a deeper level.
Yeah. And, even anger for me has never been an issue. I have projected a lot of anger into my life, into a lot of other people. And now with doing this work, there are times like this morning, I felt a lot of anger because I was frustrated. My dog hurt her paw and I just felt so angry about the situation. And in that moment, I didn't need to express. It wasn't like that. I could just drop in and I could love the anger. But then sometimes I'll get triggered into anger and I have to go into my car and I have to scream and then drop in. So it's like you just feel into it. You feel into it. But remember, the number one thing is we're not projecting or causing harm to another being when feeling this.
And that goes to, the beings of the forest going in there and just, constantly screaming and projecting that anger out. Like we are all one here. Like you might believe it, might not believe it, but the trees are going to feel that. Yeah. The areas, all the beings that live in the forest, they feel that vibration. Yeah. So check in with yourself. Am I just allowing myself to tap into this energy so I can transform it? That is being responsible. Or am I just using this as a way to get the anger out of me because I don't want to feel it? Mm-hmm. There's the difference. Is like, am I trying to get rid of the anger, or am I just allowing myself to feel it so I can actually alchemize it?
Yeah.
I'd love to go back to the part when we start to get into women and how we pigeonhole feelings as a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You got anything you want to comment about on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, this world is so hilarious. Like, I'm sure beings up there look at Earth, they're like, what is happening down there? Because you demonize a man for feeling any kind of emotion, so they become angry. And then women, we are forced to feel our emotions at least once a month because of our menstrual cycles, right? But then when we feel too much, we're labeled as crazy. like unhinged. She's so sensitive. She's so emotional. And it's like, what in the backwards world? Like, this is what we do. Everyone just demonizes each other for feeling anything that make other people feel uncomfortable, or it's too much, or it's too this and too that. And it's like, where we're headed as a humanity is like, no, let's just feel everything that's in there, and let's honor the pain. Let's honor the emotions so that we can start evolving as a species. Because where we're at now, not cute, not good, not good at all.
It's not going to cut it, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been fascinating to really see and understand why men are the way that they are. You know, something that I've really noticed too is like, as I observe the world of spirituality, right? And I see all these men, and I realize it doesn't matter how old you are. Just because you look older doesn't mean that you're not stuck at a very young age or trapped at a very young age. And like, you know, men have a lot of work to do, and this is no judgment, is because of toxic patriarchy. And
Yes.
it's because of the movies and the TV and the conditioning and the culture. Like in Korean culture, like, are you kidding? Women are back of the line, and men, you can't feel anything. Like Korean men, like a lot of what they're known for is like their temper and their anger, is because that's the only thing that they can feel. And it's just so sad to see how much it ruins men individually. Like, I've seen some really messed up stuff. I've dated some really messed up emotional dudes who don't know how to feel anything but anger.
Right. Yeah. And that's patriarchy right there.
Yeah.
That's what we're programmed, is like, this is okay. And I think with anger, like when you're allowed to feel it and you don't know how to feel the other emotions, it's all gonna come out. Because if you don't know how to feel something like, let's just say shame, right? And you're being triggered into shame and you don't know how to feel it, it's probably going to come out at anger in some way, if you know how to feel that emotion, because it feels a hell of a lot better than feeling that low vibration of shame. And underneath most anger, this is what we learn and what we see with clients, is like there's always a deeper layer of pain, deeper layer of sadness.
Yeah.
It's always an emotion that we jump to feel more powerful. Yeah. And you know, all of this that we're talking about, it's dehumanization. That's what patriarchy does, is it dehumanizes us. I mean, look out in the world, look at the way the world's going. We're constantly finding new ways to dehumanize men, dehumanize women, because the more disconnected we are from our human selves, we haven't got a hope and chance to connect deeper to our, you know, our soul self. And the more then we can be easily manipulated and brainwashed. And that's a whole nother topic and podcast for another day. I encourage any men who are out there this Sunday, September 17th, 9 a.m. PST, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we've got a free event for men. Welcome all men. It's going to be virtual, online. There's going to be a group healing. There's going to be individual healings. There's going to be people sharing about their experience with this work. And it's completely free. So come join on. There'll be a link in the description. And for any men that are listening to this that are like, well, I'm interested in maybe starting to play around with some of these ideas, feel into what divine masculine is. It's stable, it's secure, it's safe. And then start to feel into, where am I not showing up like that? Where am I not showing up in stability? When my partner comes to me with emotion, am I able to be that stability for her to move through it? Or do I walk away? Do I close down? Do I shut myself off? Do I then react? Do I become annoyed as she's annoyed? Or do I stay grounded in my heart and be the expansive love that she may need in that moment as my partner? Am I secure in myself? And if I'm not, where am I insecure? This is just something I'm constantly going into. Okay, I'm insecure here. I feel inferior here. I feel shame here. I feel guilt here. I feel whatever. If we find these parts of us, doing this work is how we become the best version of ourselves. And we do become the man that we all could be. So
sign up for the Divine Heart of Man going down this Sunday. And let me tell you something. The men that I've witnessed that have been doing this work that we offer at Master of Self University blows me away every single time. Every single time where I see them evolve and heal so much of that toxic patriarchy, that toxic masculinity, the objectification and lust. It's so powerful to witness. And if you're feeling called to really go on this ride with us, sign up and we will see you guys on Sunday.
Bye.
Bye. So I wrote 214 Bubba And then 36 minutes is when you start all over again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
Okay, thank you for that. I know you got a busy day.
You were snoring, bro.